Hello and welcome to the Being Trauma Informed video learning series. My name is Chris Wilson. I'm the director of Being Trauma Informed. And these 4 videos this month are all dedicated to the topic of intimate terrorism. If you're interested in why we're using that term instead of domestic violence, given that these are in honor of Domestic Violence Awareness Month, I would encourage you to check out our first video from last week, which talks about why we use the term intimate terrorism. This week's video is going to be about the topic of organizing. Next week, we're going to talk about how the brain is affected long-term by this dynamic of intimate terrorism. And in the last week of the month, we will take you through an exercise called You'd Stay 2, which hopefully you will find both informative and interesting from the perspective of integrating some of the brain science with some of the practical realities that face victims and survivors of intimate terrorism. As usual, if you have comments, if you have questions, feel free to leave them either here at YouTube under the video, or feel free to send us an email, info@beingti.com. And with that, let's talk about organizing. So let's talk about organizing. What is it, and how can it help us better understand the dynamic of intimate terrorism? Organizing was a term that was coined by Dave White up in Seattle, Washington, in the work that he was doing with abusive men. He used it as a way of talking about power and control without actually using the term power and control, which he noticed put men on the defensive. So organizing, in its essence, is a term that helps us understand how it is we go about letting people know what we want. So we do this with our intimate partner, we do this with friends, we do this with family members, we do this with strangers. We are consistently organizing people. We are consistently letting people know what we want in any given moment. Now, we do that in a wide variety of ways. We use our voice and the words. We use our voice in terms of tone. We use our face in terms of facial expression, eye contact or lack of eye contact. We use our body in terms of proximity, in terms of the way we move. If we hold our hands in the air, right? That's a way of organizing someone. So there are lots of ways that we can organize, and obviously you can use combinations, right? Let me just give you a really quick example. If a friend of yours is talking about going to a restaurant, you've decided you're going to go to lunch, and your friend says, oh, I'd really like to check out that restaurant up on 17th. The one by, and before they're even done talking, you know which restaurant they're talking about, and you've been there and didn't like it at all. And so what do? Do you stop your friend? Now, most of us are going to usually do something like this. As your friend is talking, you just go, and your friend notices that, and that organizes them. That lets them know you don't want to go to that restaurant. And a lot of folks are going to stop and say, oh, wait, no, have you heard something? Like, do you not like, right? That's organizing. So how can it help us make sense of intimate terrorism? Well, there are 3 things that I want you to know about organizing that we'll put in the context of intimate terrorism that I think will help you make sense of the dynamic. And the first is, organizing can be incredibly subtle, not necessarily to the victim or the person experiencing the organizing, but to everyone else looking in. So, while the victim of organizing experiences a look or experiences a change in tone as being quite dramatic and sending a very clear message, very often people on the outside don't pick up on it. They don't understand the organizing that's going on. So you have folks, for example, who are amongst family, and the victim experiences being organized by the abuser in a way that raises anxiety for the victim. And the victim reaches out to a family member and says, this is what I'm talking about. This is what I meant when I said that my partner is, psychologically abusive. And because it's subtle to the people on the outside, very often the family member or the friend, what? Wait, what? I didn't even notice. What happened? So this subtlety very often makes a victim feel like they are either overinterpreting, overreacting, because when they try to tell others about it, due to the subtlety, others don't see it, others don't get it. The second thing I want you to understand about organizing is that there's a continuum on which we organize. And that continuum has to do with the degree to which we're interested in genuinely getting the opinion and feedback of whoever it is that we're organizing. So, for example, and I use this in my trainings quite frequently. So if you've seen one of my trainings and seen this example, I'll apologize in advance, but just run with it here. So if I want your feedback about my outfit, right, I can organize you. I can let you know, do I want your genuine feedback about my outfit? Or I just want you to tell me I look great. So I could say things like, for example, hey, I'm just curious. When I was putting this together, I was wondering whether the sweater and the shirt were too dark, whether I should have more contrast, because I am not very good at fashion, and I'm really curious. Like, does this work? The other way that I can organize you is to let you know I'm not really interested in your opinion. I just want you to validate me. So I can say, hey, so I've got a question for you. I want to ask you about my outfit, but before I do that, let me just tell you, I really like the way the gray reflects in the blue-gray of my eyes. I just think it really brings out the character. And the red is a really nice contrast, don't you think? I mean, what do you think of this outfit? Hopefully from those two examples, I've made it very clear that on the one hand, I'm genuinely curious. What do you think? And on the other hand, I'm not curious at all. Now, in the context of intimate terrorism, most of the interactions between an intimate terrorist and the victim are going to be on that side of the continuum that is, I'm not interested in your opinion. I'm not interested in who you are. I'm not interested in your ideas. I'm interested in you doing what I would like you to do, saying what I would like you to say, and being who I want you to be. Let me just give you some examples of that. I've worked with a number of clients over the years. One of them said to me in a session, Chris, I don't even know what flavor of ice cream I like. And it's because we always just chose my partner's flavor of ice cream. That's a partner who has organized the victim so intensely that she didn't even have a sense of a favorite flavor of ice cream. Or another client of mine who said, even when things were going well, it just felt like I couldn't breathe, because even though the words were there, the words of I'm interested in what you think of this, or I'm interested in how you feel about that, there was always that hesitation of, is this gonna come back to bite me? Because the organizing is usually around, I'm not interested. Hopefully that helps you understand the dynamic. The third thing that I'd like you to understand about organizing is that when you include abuse, the organizing becomes weaponized, so to speak. Meaning, when I act abusively in a relationship, my intimate partner's brain becomes sensitized to any behaviors that are affiliated or associated with that abuse. Tones of voice, facial expressions, body postures, even context. In doing that sensitizing, in making sure that the person who I'm abusing knows what the consequences in the future will be, I essentially set that person up so that I can get their brain to believe they're about to be abused with a simple look, with a simple change in tone, with a simple, for example, a finger to my face. Right? This is an example of a client of mine who went to a restraining order hearing, and when her partner went like this was something that he would do to her in public to let her know she wasn't behaving the way that he wanted her to behave. So because he'd been abusive in the past, when she saw him do this, she felt this rush of anxiety and her heart started racing, and she had the strong desire to leave the hearing and not participate in the restraining order hearing, which is exactly what he was hoping to get. So when you sensitize the brain using abusive behavior, organizing becomes this incredibly powerful way to get a victim's brain to truly believe that you are about to be abused, even though logically it may not make sense, even though logically the abuser may be on the phone in a different state, or logically the abuser may be at a table in a courtroom and there's a bailiff there, and right, logically, but it doesn't matter to the brain. So I hope these three aspects of organizing, this notion that it can be extremely subtle and not seen by others, this notion that it is usually organizing from the perspective of, I'm not interested in your honest opinion, and this notion that when I've been abusive in the past, my organizing becomes that much more powerful, I hope that helps you understand the dynamic of intimate terrorism a little bit better. If you have questions or comments, love to hear from you either in the comments section down below here on YouTube, or feel free to send an email to info@beingti.com. Thank you for tuning in today. Next week, we'll be talking about the long-term impact of intimate terrorism. And in our final week, we'll look at the exercise called You'd Stay Too. Again, my name is Chris Wilson, Director of Being Trauma Informed. See you next week.